We were trying to find out how LSD works in the brain. LSD is used by millions of people, it's been used by millions of people, and it has very interesting effects on consciousness. It changes consciousness in a very unique way. And on that basis, it suggests that it could be a very powerful tool to study and better understand consciousness.
When a person takes LSD, what does the average person experience?
They describe perceptual changes. They might say that things look different. Perhaps the walls start to lose their sort of solid quality. If they close their eyes, they might have dreamlike imagery in their mind's eye that's particularly vivid. They also describe a loss of self sometimes if the effects are very intense, something that they refer to and we refer to as ego dissolution.
But we don't know critically why it has this effect in the brain and what the brain is doing when it creates these experiences.
We don't really know why in terms of brain activity, but we can make some inferences. When you look at how the brain changes on psychedelics, you see that certain controlling systems in the brain that might serve a kind of repressive function, they sort of dissolve away. And what that leaves is what you might call the primitive brain, more sensitive, more sort of emotional. So this is one way we can think about this, that you're sort of taking away that restraining function in the brain and allowing it to be more sensitive to things, really.
And in the present study, what did you do to actually see which bits of the brain were being affected by the drug and how?
We used 3 complementary brain imaging techniques. We used 2 fMRI techniques. One measures blood flow in the brain. This serves as a kind of proxy measure of underlying brain activity. We also used another measure, it's called the BOLD signal, BOLD. This allows us to look at brain network properties and how different regions talk to each other. Then we used a third modality called MEG, and this is in the domain of brain waves, so the faster brain activity, something that you can't pick up with fMRI. So when we put all these things together, we've got a kind of complementary approach, quite a comprehensive approach to finding out what's going on in the brain.
So you give a group of volunteers LSD and then see what it does to their brain?
That's right. So there were 20 healthy individuals. They have 2 scanning sessions. On one of the occasions, they get an injection of just placebo, that's saline injection, and on the other, they get the LSD, and we give 75 micrograms, that's a moderate dose.
And what happened?
Well, we saw that if you look at the brain as a whole, and you look at its communication patterns, you see a much more expansive profile. Much more of the brain is talking to itself. You have regions that normally don't talk to each other so much, that are kind of cut off from each other, begin to communicate much more freely. We think this maps on to the sort of hyper-flexible, hyper-imaginative, hyper-associative quality of consciousness, of cognition in the LSD state.
Yeah, people say that it helps them to have novel ideas or think about things in new ways without the constraints of their life experience in influencing the way they think. So it would fit with that, wouldn't it? The fact that you're seeing different disparate regions of the brain beginning to have a conversation internally and exchange information like that.
It does fit with that, yeah. And so you could think of it as a sort of deconditioning in a way, and you have a sort of freshness to brain function. In which it could be perhaps more sensitive to experience and information coming in. And also that there's facilitated access to material that's already in the mind. I think that's kind of crucial when we think about psychedelics. In fact, the term psychedelic means to reveal the soul. So these compounds are soul revealing or mind revealing.
What about using this effect it's having on the brain to do things like brain therapy, behavioural therapies? There are certain diseases or disease states where different parts of the brain talk to each other the wrong way, or people who get entrenched depression and they can't snap out of it.
That's right.
And is it possible to perhaps exploit the fact that you've got disparate regions of the brain breaking the normal boundaries and communicating in new ways to recondition or wipe the slate clean to get people back to normal.
Yes, and that's what we want to do. So recently we've been doing a depression trial looking at a similar compound to LSD. It's called psilocybin. It's a compound that's found in magic mushrooms, and we've been looking at it as a drug to assist psychotherapy for depression, and this is treatment-resistant depression, so depression that hasn't responded to antidepressant medications, your Prozacs and such like. And we've actually found these are preliminary results, and it's just an open-label trial at this point, so a pilot study, a feasibility study. But the initial results are very promising,